What's going on, everyone? So this is a huge video for the Nintendo base for people who are thinking about jumping into the Nintendo world. If you missed the Switch, I highly recommend that because it's going to be full backwards compatible, and the system's going to sell well over 100 million. If you didn't know, I'm telling you right now, the Switch 2 is probably at around 150 million plus because of the holidays, and they do major in December, so those numbers are going to be really good. And then the last months only showed them having a -3% drop, which is absolutely insane going into your eighth year. But in this video, Digital Foundry gives us a deep analysis into the patents that they filed. And there's more than just DLSS. We have custom DLSS. They have their own upscaling model. Not only that, but they have their own machine learning that they patent. So we're going to go over this. This is going to be very interesting. And I think we're going to be in for a shock when the Switch 2 gets revealed, that we're going to see a lot of great things. Not only did they reveal that, but they revealed some cloud DLSS and scaling machine learning aspects. So we're going to be seeing some jumps on that to be able to play games better if the hardware is kind of like not keeping up with certain third-party games today. So this is going to be very interesting. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what y'all think. Let's get into it. I'm excited because I can't wait. Switch 2 is going to be awesome.
Okay, so we're sticking with Nintendo here. They've released a patent. There's an upscaling patent from Nintendo's European Research and Development wing, actually. And obviously, in the wake of all of the Switch 2 leaks, it is of clear interest. Now, Alex, you've taken a look at this. And I just skimmed the first couple of pages and it looked to me like Nintendo was trying to patent DLSS.
Yeah.
But it actually turns out that they're trying to patent a lot of different things. And it's a bit of a mishmash. And none of us have really got any idea how this actually got passed as a patent. But
Yeah.
please go ahead.
Yeah, so like Rich said, it is the people on the patent as well as the name of the company is Nintendo. It's I think at least three very French sounding names, maybe Swiss sounding names, maybe French speaking Belgium names. I really don't know. Three gentlemen at least working at Nintendo's European office there, and their research applied machine learning as well. A number of them have been working there for quite a while. And the patent does describe, I would say, like, primarily within the first few pages, it's really obvious that it is describing just via imagery until it gets to later on with the body text. It's describing a machine learn assisted upscale from a lower internal resolution to a higher output resolution. And the very specific called out numbers throughout the entire document, which I'll get to in a second, are 540p to 1080p. And the description is basically breaking up the screen into small tiles, much like a convolutional neural network would do, and then running it locally via inferencing here on some sort of, and they describe actually tensor cores extensively throughout the document. They call them out.
What? Them having tensor cores for their GPU? That's crazy. And we saw the models right there. That's 100% telling you that they're going to have DLSS on the Switch. And it's going to be a custom DLSS. And an example was taking a 540p internal resolution and upscaling it to 1080p. Which seems like something Nintendo would do. But what's more interesting is what's going to be coming down the line. Trust me, it's not limited to that. There's going to be 4K on the Switch 2. And we're going to get into that later on in this video. But it's interesting what he's already said, which is pretty big for them.
They call out CUDA as well, too. To do all that process and get a higher image at the end. But this patent is 39 pages long, including the title page there. And it describes actually a lot more than that. If you go through the rest of the other series of images, for example, one of the patents, the embellishments of this patent is that, like, they describe a cloud version of the same thing. They describe also the training process as well, too.
Think about that, because the cloud is only getting better and better till one day we'll be able to play games very, very good off of it. Definitely in the next few years, it's coming. So I think Nintendo has the right strategy, and they're going to be able to take shortcuts more than what people can imagine. Look out for this, y'all, because I think they're going to be integrating and investing big time into the cloud. We saw that what was going on in Japan. So definitely with cloud upscaling, oh man, Wait till we get to the compression of being able to make games like 20 to 30 gigabytes lower than what it would cost for storage capacity. I mean, this is just awesome and amazing. I've seen it, but going through it now with y'all, and like I said, this is awesome.
Essentially training on a larger system, which then sends out the inference model out to the various devices, presumably through title updates and or through system updates. They describe a lot. There's a lot more, but some of them are more device specific that I kind of want to get into now. So one of the things that makes this patent different than like standard DLSS is that the pure description of the flow that they show there doesn't actually describe anything with motion vectors or anything like that. And that's actually directly referenced at one point in the patent itself. Let me just call that up. Sorry, I've got it right here. They call them the various kind of like sub versions of the patent, like the little bits in it, that because it's such a encompassing thing, they describe them always as embodiments of the patent. It's a great phrase. And this is referenced, I believe, maybe on page 27. It says, in certain example embodiments, as in certain variations of this patent, the initial image may be rendered or otherwise generated with motion vector information or depth information, e.g. z-buffer data. This information may be used to improve the resulting converted image quality. Such information may be, in certain example embodiments, added to the activation matrix, which is part of this like flow there, towards the beginning, that is created based on each pixel block. So the patent does describe also a DLSS style, but another thing that it references that
machine learning,
using motion vectors and previous frames as a result of that. But it also does describe a single image being upscaled with a machine learning network,
yes,
to a higher output resolution, e.g. video, e.g. It would also represent things like a kind of dumb upscale that uses machine learning. Oliver referenced earlier, like a bilinear or Lanczos style, simple, somewhat higher quality-ish than just a linear upscale. But this describes, basically, it doesn't need to just be machine learning DLSS style upscaling. It can actually encompass upscaling video content, singular images. It can encompass upscaling textures. It can encompass a whole lot of things. It's an extremely broad patent as a result of that. That's why I'm shocked that it was even allowed to be a patent. Because
yeah, he's just saying it's a lot. I wish you guys would have gave me a more simplified depth. It was probably like 5-6 pages long. But just hearing everything he's saying, like we were telling people before, AI is the future to help out big time. So expect this like to be in there for a lot of games. And I'm glad that they have NVIDIA to do that, because if we even look at like the PS5 Pro right now, it does not have tensor cores or matrix cores, which would be AMD's counter aspect to that, which is obviously not on par with that, but still. The fact that they even mentioned the Switch having something like tensor cores is crazy. So yeah, this is all good news and showing that they're doing like block by block upscaling. They're really trying to fully integrate this and take some crazy shortcuts. And with cloud syncing too. Oh, wow.
Because surely there is existing work in this field. But yeah. Either way. So it does describe DLSS. Another thing that it describes is that it says exclusively throughout the document in each of these figures, for example, 540p internal image being brought up to 1080p at the end, but they exclusively call out explicitly call out that that is just a representation, can represent the fact that the device, the handheld device, will be a lower resolution than the potential connected output device, a la Switch or Switch 2, where the device is lower resolution than the potential output screen that it is attached to. They call out very specifically 720p to 1080p. They also call out 1080p to 1440p. And a whole other variety of things like 480p to 1080p, 1080p to 1440p, 1080p to 4K, and 720p to 4K.
So we see that there's going to be some games, and I wonder if this is going to be applied to backwards compatible games. I think this is going to be the case, y'all. And retro games. It's going to be very interesting because we have a lot of techniques here. So we see that they're going to go all the way back as far as they can if there's a problem, and that there's some games they're going to be getting. It's like imagine Breath of the Wild and stuff. You know what I mean? You kind of getting the idea. Tears of the Kingdom, just stuff that just wouldn't have been able to do that without that. And for people that are also coming into the system that didn't have the Switch 1, that are going to be able to get that higher experience. We're trying to look at the Switch to Switch 2 jump here. I'm not trying to compare it to anything else because we know Nintendo can do a lot with their engines, and they're one of the best developers and optimizers in the entire industry. And they don't release broken products. So, yeah, this is going to be very amazing. It seems like they're doing something here that's never been done before with like that custom stuff that it doesn't exist like on PC or anything else, where we might see them do something different. And they're going to be going for possibly a lightweight model. Kind of like how Sony did with PSSR, but they're going to be doing their thing with NVIDIA, but they're not going to make those mistakes they made, obviously.
So they're kind of trying to cover every single DLSS mode in here. And I can't believe this is all in a patent, by the way. It is very like super specific and
sounds like that.
Overly broad at the same time. Okay, another couple of things that they call out that I think are pretty interesting is that, as Oliver talked about earlier, and as we've shown before in the past by looking at, I made a video ages ago, and Rich looked at this too with the 2050, that DLSS itself is really expensive to get up and running in its full desktop quality form on a low power chip. And this patent, at a variety of, in multiple parts of it, too numerous to call out, does actually draw attention to the fact that this is a compute heavy process as well as a bandwidth heavy process, which a low power device using low power RAM chips, DRAM as they describe it, may not be able to do within 1/30th of a second or within 1/60th of a second. They don't use millisecond numbers here. And it calls it out that the network that they're describing here is specifically targeted to doing it within 1/30th or 1/60th of a second on a low power chip. So if it is potentially different than standard DLSS in this aspect, where it might be cheaper, but at another section of the later part of the patent, they describe very specifically one of the embodiments of this patent is that the model, based upon real-time data coming from the game engine, can be switched out in real time or prepared ahead of time programmatically to use a lower quality upscaling model to fit within a certain frame time budget. So they're describing if the game, for example, exceeds, the game engine sends out an image that exceeded 16.6 milliseconds or something like that, or 33.3 milliseconds, this theoretical switch to game device would then use, in this moment, a lower quality upscaling model to get the final 1080p output image, for example. And
so what he's saying is that they're going to have not only their own custom DLSS, but there's going to be parts of the game where they can have a dynamic DLSS machine learning aspect. This is crazy because I've never heard of a dynamic DLSS. So Nintendo is going to be, I guess, with NVIDIA inventing that. Very interesting.
And this is describing not dynamic resolution scaling, but it's describing dynamic deep learned upscaling. I don't know how to describe it. Like the model's being switched out in real time to a lower quality one so that the frame time can be kept up or the frame rate can be kept up, which is wholly new. And I don't think we've seen that anywhere before. I've never seen that described anywhere before. But I thought that was wholly interesting. And it may be an aspect of the Switch 2 that we hadn't really thought about. The fact that depending upon the game and the device and the requirements for the developer, it could be switching out various types of DLSS models, ones that are cheaper than others, and it could even do it potentially, as the patent describes, in real time, depending upon the current frame time, which would be
interesting.
Which would be very interesting, actually, and it would be a new novel technology here, very much so exclusive to something like the Switch, because in the desktop environment, this is probably not needed. Probably most definitely isn't not needed for unless you're on like a really low powered laptop. So But there's even more in the patent here, but a lot of it is it just really it covers way too much. It goes over the fact that it describes like cloud upscaling. This game device could be in a cloud, and it could be upscaling on the cloud side of things and then sent as a stream to the viewer. They also describe a stream being sent over the cloud to the viewer, which is then upscaled on the local device using machine learning. So another potential Nintendo streaming service description there. It really covers so much about how either in the cloud or on a local device, some sort of machine learning upscaling can occur. The last thing I'm going to say is that they also describe how this process, one of the embodiments, is that a game could have 4K textures. So they say 4K images here. It's a little bit poorly written, I would describe. And it could have like an on-disk size of, let's just say 80 gigs. And they describe that. And then they say, but it could be shipped with 1080p images or textures and then be upscaled in real time by the device to have smaller disk size.
So let me tell you what he just said. This is absolutely amazing. Like this, I swear Nintendo are geniuses with so many things that you would never see nobody else do. And they can take so much less and just outperform everybody else with it and just outsmart them. So imagine that, let's give an example of Call of Duty is a 100 gigabyte game launching for all consoles right now. And they're putting that on Switch. But the Switch version is like 65 or 70 gigs because of that. So what they're going to do, instead of you having native 4K images, you're going to be getting 1080p upscaled to 4K to reduce the size down. So you see the 60 gig and the 20 gig. It's actually 80 gigs, but with this compression, just as an example, you're going to be getting 60 gigabytes taken up on your storage. This is absolutely amazing. Crazy.
20 gigabytes. So they're even describing like neural decompression almost of images up to a higher resolution one to make game disk sizes smaller. This is such a broad patent. But to say the least, some of this tech here will definitely be in Switch 2, and this patent was put out December 31st, 2024, just a few days back. So it's very relevant to what's going to be happening in the Switch 2.
Mm-hmm. And equally, though, a lot of it could just be stuff they've been working on that will never make it to a shipping product. I mean, I've spoken to engineers who've got like a wealth of patents that, is just stuff that they worked on that they thought was worth protecting, but they never actually made it into a final shipping product. So it's worth bearing that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
With, big asterisks and caveats and everything else. Do you have any reaction to this, Oliver?
No, just to say that some of these patent filings, I mean, I've read through some of this language here and in other filings, although it is fairly dense. They are a bit ridiculous in terms of how broad they are, in terms of what they cover, because you're really looking for the maximum coverage that the patent office will accept with the minimum specificity that they'll accept rather. And that's a frustrating combination for someone who's just trying to read through one of these documents and identify, like, okay, what are the specific details of this implementation, and how would it be unique, and could someone even look at this and implement something similar with this if they were experts in the field, based on the specificity, questions like that patent offices have to deal with, and sometimes they don't do a great job there. But, I'm kind of reminded of that Mark Cerny patent from earlier this year that had some significance potentially, but ultimately, I'm just inclined to say that this is a bundle of technologies and techniques here that are, maybe they'll show up in a Switch 2, maybe they won't, until we see the actual hardware, until we understand what it's like working with the hardware from developers. I feel like this is basically going to continue to be a black box for us.
Yeah.
Okay, so we get a good idea here of what Nintendo filed here. We do know DLSS is happening, but there's so much more in there. I mean, he's giving you highlights. It's a lot. So I'm very excited to see what they're going to unveil. I think we're all waiting for them to pull back the curtain. It's been a while. I'm tired of all these leaks and rumors. But this is something to kind of highlight and be like, okay, you know what I mean? That's looking pretty good. And to get people a little bit more excited, right? Because this is something that we can actually talk about that is actually filed, right? Not making up stuff, because there's just too much of that. It just gets ridiculous. But I think the unveil is happening this month. Seriously, they need to do it and get it out the way. But like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what y'all think. I can't wait to see what's going to happen with this, and I can't wait to see what games they got in development. But yeah, I'm excited about this stuff, and just to know that they're going to be having that on there. So, all right, y'all. Peace out. Let me know what y'all think in the comments.